It's the start of a new week here in May. Today is Monday, May 16th, and this is Wake Up with KERA News. I'm Andrew Garcia. There's a chance we continue to see some light May showers this morning, but the possibility for severe weather, like that we saw last night, continues this afternoon into the evening between 3 and 11 p.m. All types of severe weather could be possible, including large hail, damaging winds, and tornadoes, so keep an eye out on your weather alerts this afternoon. Metabolic syndrome, having a large waistline, high blood sugar, and cholesterol problems together can cause worse problems. We'll hear why that is after the news. A bill in the Texas House that would cut funding for Dallas area rapid transit is likely dead after it failed to get a second hearing by last week's deadline. But an identical bill in the Senate could still advance. Senate Bill 1557 would reduce DART's sales tax collection by 25%. Plano Mayor John Munz is among those calling to cut funding, saying his community has little need for the service. DART says the legislation would reduce its services and hurt the region's economy. And another Texas bill, one that would let people sue bookstores for selling or displaying books deemed obscene, appears to have died in the Texas House. House Bill 1375 missed a key deadline this week to move forward out of committee. Kathy Doyle Thomas with Dallas-based bookstore Half Priced Books says the bill was too vague and could open the door to lawsuits over everyday titles. Supporters say the bill is about protecting children, but opponents argue it could punish stores for carrying materials some might find controversial. A large waistline, high blood sugar, or cholesterol problems are each cause for concern. Having all three risk factors together is called metabolic syndrome. A new study links metabolic syndrome to increased risk for young-onset dementia. That's dementia before age 65. Dr. Claudia Perez, a neurointensivist with Texas Health Fort Worth, tells KERA's Sam Bekah risk factors in metabolic syndrome can put you at risk for brain damage.
High blood pressure can lead to inefficient oxygen use by the brain, which can lead to what's called hypoperfusion. So not big strokes, but small hits to the brain from lack of oxygen over time. And things like having high cholesterol, having high sugar can lead to breakdown in that blood-brain barrier that can lead to inflammation, specifically neuroinflammation, that can cause damage to the brain. So it kind of primes the brain to be more vulnerable. And so if somebody already has a risk factor to develop dementia, they don't have as much what we would call cognitive reserve. So the brain isn't as healthy to withstand the changes that come with dementia.
Are we talking metabolic syndrome as a direct cause of dementia or perhaps a correlation between the two?
The study can only speak to a correlation. We're not saying the cause of dementia necessarily, but definitely increases the risk factor for development of dementia earlier on, or this young onset dementia.
Now, according to the study, people with metabolic syndrome were maybe 24% more likely to develop dementia at a young age, meaning before 65. That doesn't sound terribly high.
It was only less than 0.5% of the population that actually ended up developing young onset dementia. But whenever we look at that smaller group, we see that risk factor's there. The reason that this, is concerning is whenever we extrapolate that to the U.S. population, 33% of Americans meet criteria for metabolic syndrome. And population studies, looking back at an article from 2020, whenever we look at the incidence of how has metabolic syndrome changed over time, while in the general population, metabolic syndrome has stayed pretty constant, especially for young people between the ages of 20 to 40, and women and Asian and Hispanics, the rate of metabolic syndrome has significantly increased. So definitely something to be on the lookout for.
In other words, another good reason to watch out for your health.
And understanding that these changes begin early on. And while they might not be apparent early in life, they may end up having an impact later on.
These factors that make up metabolic syndrome, they're all preventable.
They really are. And whenever we think about brain health over the lifespan, we really want to, emphasize on prevention. So thinking about things that can make us live healthier throughout our lifetime. And these are things like, whenever we think about kind of the news out there is things like life's essential 8, right? The things we do like diet, physical activity, thinking about our sleep health, thinking about our weight, our BMI, ensuring that we're not smoking, and then making sure that we're keeping up with routine medical checkups to see where we are as far as our glucose, our blood pressure, and our cholesterol. Because if we do end up having any of these medical conditions, we can do something about treating them and reducing the risk.
That was KERA's Sam Bekah speaking with Dr. Claudia Perez of Texas Health Fort Worth. The Dallas Stars won Saturday night's game in a tense fashion, 2-1 in overtime. With the win on home ice, they punched their ticket to the Western Conference Finals to take on the Edmonton Oilers. That makes 3 overtime wins for the Stars during this playoff run alone. And the Rangers finished a series against the Houston Astros this weekend. They split the series 2 games each. Fans of the series A Court of Thorns and Roses, head to Talking Animal Books tonight to celebrate the book's 10-year anniversary. There'll be costume contests, flash tattoos, and more. Find more info and other fun things to do on our Go See DFW calendar at keranews.org/calendar. Thanks so much for listening to Wake Up with KERA News. I'm your host, Andrew Garcia. The show is produced and edited by Shardae White and Bekah Morr. For more news in your inbox, visit kera.org/wakeup. That's where you can subscribe to the Wake Up with KERA News newsletter and get some good morning vibes from our colleague, Catherine Hobbs. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We're at KERATX. Here's wishing you an easy start to your week. We'll see you tomorrow.